As we've seen over the last couple years, gun shows have definitely been improving, and that's great to see because gun shows really went downhill. And a lot of people going to gun shows, it may be their first gun show because there's a lot of new gun owners out there, millions of them, and millions of people still considering being the first-time gun owners. And a lot of times, whether you're a first-time gun buyer or whether this is your 1,000th gun shows are great if you follow some general rules, because gun shows can be quite terrible if you do some terrible behavior. And a lot of times what we've seen at gun shows is a product of the terrible behavior. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about 10 really foolish things that you could do at gun shows that really ruin that gun show experience. Number 1, be nice. You know, the gun community is really one of the nicest communities I've ever engaged in, and I've been to all sorts of gun shows, gun stores, gun conventions, SHOT Show, NRA, and everywhere I go, everybody is incredibly kind. And I've been to other conventions that weren't gun conventions, and that people aren't so kind. So when you go to the gun show, just know that everybody's pretty nice there, and if you're not being nice, it's unusual. You're the strange one, and if you find yourself being mean, it's probably your fault. So when you're at the gun show, just be kind, be nice. Even if somebody else might be rude to you, just be that awesome example of gun people and be the kind one. Number 2, don't pay too much. That has been the problem with gun shows over the last several years, is that they just charge way too much price gouging going on at gun shows. And the reason people were price gouging is because people were willing to pay it. So don't pay too much. 1, don't be a fool with your money, but 2, it kind of encourages that behavior for future people that are going to go to gun shows and the future of gun shows. Overall, take some time to haggle. There's definitely nothing wrong with haggling, and do some price checks. You know, I will get online and I'll look at what that gun is going for in other places, and just know what it's worth. Take a little bit of time, do the research, haggle, but don't pay too much. Number 3, safety check every single gun that you look at, even if they safety check it right in front of you. If they say they safety checked it and then they safety check it in front of you, safety check it. Don't start messing with that gun if you haven't safety checked it. Make that the very first thing you do when it touches your hands. When I was at the Tulsa Gun Show just this year, as my son and I are walking around, all of a sudden you can hear a gun go off inside that facility. And later on, what we found out was somebody handed a customer a shotgun, and he luckily pointed it at the ceiling, but he checked it and it did go off. So safety check that gun. Number 4. Don't buy non-gun related stuff, because there's been a lot of gun shows over the last couple years where more than 50% of the product there has nothing to do with guns. It's windows for your home, or new roofing, or baked goods, or toys, or clothing, or purses, or all these non-gun related things. And just don't encourage that behavior. And typically those people are kind of aggressive too, by the way. They kind of ruin the whole gun show experience. Not all of them, but just don't encourage that behavior. When you go to a gun show, you expect to see guns and gun-related items, not new windows or new gutters. Just don't buy that stuff. Now, obviously, if you happen to be at the gun show and you need new gutters, I guess so, talk to the fella. But honestly, I'd probably get his card and call him later and not buy him there, show him any sort of interest there at all. Because the fewer people like that we get, the more guns we get at the gun show. Number 5, don't touch anything without asking. They're guns and knives and things like don't touch anything without asking. Oftentimes if people want you to touch things, they'll have signs that say, help yourself, that kind of thing. But Don't touch anything without asking, and when you do touch something, return it the way that you found it. And I know this may sound kind of dumb, but it kind of goes back to that be kind. You know, it's about having a common respect for each other, and you know, just kind of picking something up and touching it without asking and then putting it over there is it's mean, it's disrespectful, it's rude. You know, it kind of goes back to just be polite. Go, you know, thank you for letting me look at your item. Now let me return it the way that I found it. So ask and just return it the way you found it before you touch anything. And obviously safety check it. We'll go back to that one again, unnecessarily, but just as a reminder. Number 6, guns aren't toys. They're not toys. Don't treat them like toys. Point them in a safe direction, just like the shotgun that went off at the Tulsa show. Could you imagine if that guy was being a fool and pointing it at people or sweeping people with the barrel? Don't like just all guns are loaded. Just assume they're all loaded. Point them in a safe direction, especially if you're going to handle the trigger. Point them in a safe direction. They're not toys. Safety check them and always point them in a safe direction. Number 7. Don't disrupt a sale or an interaction that the person running the booth is having with someone else. Just wait. Be patient. If you're in a hurry, go to a different booth and come back to that booth. But be patient. Don't disrupt that conversation or rudely interject, and definitely don't add what you think about the gun to the conversation. Now, I'm going to say I'm kind of guilty of that. I've been in places where I say, oh, I've shot that gun, I really like it. And even if you're saying something positive, somehow it just doesn't help. Stay out of those conversations. Don't interrupt those conversations. Make yourself known so they wait on you next. But again, we're going to go back to the be nice thing. And I'm just kind of going back to these are the things that we need to all do. These are the stupid things we do at the gun show. Just take your time, take your turn. Number 8. Safely store guns in your vehicle. I know this is a strange one, but it's one that a lot of people don't think about, is that gun, oftentimes maybe you're selling a gun at the gun show or you're buying a gun at the gun show and you don't want to carry it around, so you go put it in your car and you come back to the gun show. Don't do that. Safely store it in your car. What I mean by safely store it in your car is really the only safe way to store in your car is I used to have a car that was actually used to be a police vehicle, and you couldn't get into the trunk without the key. There's no way you're getting there's no, you know, even if you broke into the car, you couldn't pop the trunk. There was no way to get into that trunk without that key. Or have safes. There's a lot of great safes that mount to the car. Just be cautious. Just keep in mind you're at a gun show and everybody knows that people have guns in their cars. Safely store your guns in your cars if you're going to leave guns in your cars. Number 9, don't buy the first gun you come across. And now this is kind of a complicated thing. You don't want to miss out on it, but you also don't want to be an impulse buyer. You know, if you're looking for a Glock 19, don't buy the first Glock 19 you see, because there's a bunch of them there. Take your time and kind of go back to that haggle thing. You know, it may be overpriced. You know, you may buy it, then you get 10 feet down and there's actually one that's nicer and more affordable. You know, a lot of people say, well, buy real quick because then the next guy will buy. And, you know, we're not in that place anymore. We're not in that panic buying mode at the gun show. We're back to that, oh, I can casually cruise around and look, and once I've looked at everything, let's go back and I'll buy that thing. And maybe it's not there. Or maybe it's not meant to be. I mean, I do that with all sorts of things. If it's meant to be your gun, it's going to be there when you go back, is kind of what I tell myself. Because I'm kind of an impulse buyer in nature, so I've learned over time how to fight against that. Is just I don't, you know, anything over $100, I'm going to think about. I'm not going to impulse buy. It's either there when I come back or it's not there when I come back. So that's my recommendation, is don't buy the first thing you see. Now, an exception to that rule is if you're looking for something really rare and you don't see it often, like that's maybe the first or second time you've ever seen one. Now that you might kind of hang on to it in your hands and stand there while you think about it, pray about it, that kind of thing. But so I don't want to say always, you know, wait, but under that rare circumstance, I can only think of 1 or 2 guns that I could come across that I would stop and say, well, maybe I'll go ahead and buy it, without at least going through and looking a bit and thinking about it. And stick to your budget as well. And finally, number 10, don't feel like it's not okay to leave empty-handed. It's okay to leave empty-handed. You don't have to buy something at the gun show. They might not have the thing you want at the price you want, so you leave. You know, the #1 days of sales at the local gun stores are the days of gun shows, because people go to the gun shows, they don't see what they want, then they go to the gun store, and they usually do find what they want. It's the #1 day of all sales at gun stores is day of gun shows. So keep that in mind as well. Be okay. It's okay to leave. There's another gun down the road. There you go. There's my top 10 foolish things. Don't do these at the gun show. Sure, there's a bunch I missed. Put them in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel with Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.